Hi, everyone. I hope we have some participants connected with us. Let us know, please, in the chat if you can hear us well, and we'll start in a few minutes.
Hello, everyone. We have few people coming in, a bit more people. So we will give it a few more minutes so that everyone is there. Don't hesitate to use the chat to say hi. Let us know that if you can hear us properly and see our screen share. I think we will start in 2 minutes. Thank you, Christophe. All right, I think we have enough people to start, and maybe for the early comer to not lose so much time, we have a lot of subject to cover, so maybe we should start, Lucie, now.
Thank you, Amal. So first of all, thanks a lot for joining us today. And we will have a webinar dedicated to addressability solutions. A nicely titled Mission Possible, Unleashing the Power of Cookieless Advertising. That will be a publisher guide to address effective addressable strategy. So this session will be dedicated more to the supply side implementation and use cases. So stuff can be activated by publishers. And we got a session a few weeks ago already with Amal dedicated to agencies and advertisers. So let's get it started. First of all, it's really a pleasure to meet you all today. And we will spend the next hour with Amal and me. So we are both from Equativ. I'm Lucie. I'm the head of product marketing at Equativ on the supply side, taking care of addressability topics among other topics. And I will let Amal introduce herself.
Thank you, Lucie. On my side, I am on the product team. I work in Equativ as a product owner, addressability. I work on all the solution related to data and addressability strategies that we develop in Equativ. Some of them you will see actually during this presentation. And I work also with data onboarding solution with our partnership integration team. Some of them you already met, but with also the product marketing team, also Tata, that was with us for the buyer side. So I work on both demand and supply side.
Thank you, Amal. So before we really jump into our webinar, just few advice and comments. So all the mics and cameras should be turned off automatically, so no worries about it. You can also leave any question in the Q&A box, so not in the chat, but rather in the Q&A box, please. So we plan to have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. We will keep some time in the end. Another quick comment for this webinar, we'll try to keep the content as educational and generic as possible. So even if you are not an Equativ client, for the use case, we try to be generic. And for sure, we will cover the topics so that you can get a better understanding of addressability. But of course, we will need to illustrate, and so we will make some examples really linked to Equativ solutions. And finally, the slides and the recording, no worries, will be shared after the session with everyone, even the one who just registered and not attended the webinar. So just to move forward, a very brief introduction of Equativ. So Equativ has a really long history on the adtech market with more than 20 years of experience in the adtech industry. So we started in 2001 with mostly focused on the publisher side business with the ad server and then the SSP. Throughout the last 20 years, we really grew on both the platforms, on both the platform offerings and features. And so now we work on both sides, meaning buy side and supply side. We now have more platforms and features focusing on both sides, and especially for advertisers and agencies, such as our curation platform. We have offices and headquarters across the world with 16 offices in 12 countries and around 60 people working at Equativ. And so it's been a real pleasure to present you all the consolidated knowledge of all these people today in that webinar. So let's get it started. And talking about addressability. So it's important to say that 80% of consumers are more likely to buy from a company that provides a tailored experience. And we all know that the advertising and the campaigns that are better targeting and more personalized towards the buyers have a better performance. Up until recently, most of those tailored experiences were delivered thanks to the use of third-party cookies. Those are pieces of information stored on a browser by someone other than the website owner that's being visited. So that's why they are third-party. And then those cookies are used to store the data and then to target users based on this data and their behavior online. As you may know, during the last years, the privacy environment has faced a lot of backlash on the practices that were used for acquiring the user data and the way this user data was used. And most of them were actually very to the point. So there have been several regulations and a lot of action pushing us towards a more responsible usage on the way as well of collecting, on how we were collecting the data. And this way, there was a lot of backlash against the third party. Currently, we are located around here in 2023, after the GDPR and CCPA went into power, and after already Firefox and Safari blocked third-party cookies. We will have the kind of continuation in 2024, with finally, if Chrome decides to do what they've been promising for years now, to do for the last couple of years, to block third-party cookies on their end as well. They should do it. So they announced that they will do it, that they will block the usage of cookie on 1% on their users starting early Q1. So let's see if this will really happen. And so this is why that will change the way advertisers run digital campaigns. With a lot of way changing how advertisers are using audience targeting and retargeting, there's now certain limitation to the way we do measurement, for example, and attribution. There's also certain effect on reach and scalability of campaigns and on our ability to do frequency capping. And because of those limitations, we need to adapt to new landscape. Companies need to transform the way they are doing digital marketing campaigns and how they leverage addressable strategies. There is two ways to adapt. The first one is to test and learn, even if a big part of the traffic still get cookies. Companies need to test and learn now while they still have time. And as well, if we want these alternatives to be really adopted, we need a cross collaboration, a cross industry collaboration, and this is key. And we need to do it now.
So when we,
yeah,
sorry, thank you, Lucie. So when we talk about addressability, we should, and the fact that we should all move to cookieless, we all know that it's coming soon. So we should actually cover the how part and what we should be doing next to actually move to a cookieless advertising strategy. And a good thing for that there is already a large array of solutions that are already developed, and some of them already used. Some of them are actually pretty familiar to you, I think. And they are actually divided in two families. One is user ID based strategies. The second one is ID-less strategies. We put the clean rooms into the first party data activation because on the seller side for you, it's kind of the same process, the same setup to do for a first party data activation and also onboarding the data into the clean room. We will cover alternative IDs and contextual targeting, SDA, and performance targeting as well. So instead of relying on third-party cookies, third-party data that has been generated and synced using the cookies, you can leverage your first-party data and collaborate on it. This is the first solution that is proposed as a cookieless strategy. So first, we will see what is exactly first-party data. It's pieces of information about the user that are collected and owned by the company across their online and offline sources. They can be divided into two categories: the site-centric user data that are collected across your website and application with technical anonymous identifiers. So they can be first-party identifiers, IDFA, universal IDs, alternative IDs, depending on the name that we will give them, and custom IDs that has been created by yourself. And they can be found on website and apps. The second category is customer-centric data, also known under the name of PII, personally identifiable information. Those one can be gathered through online, but also offline campaigns. There can be names, mailing address, email address, IP address. All of those ones can be gathered through emails and SMS campaigns, CRMs, point of sales, subscriptions, and so on. So for the first party data, sorry, I passed it too quick. For the first party data, it's actually at the heart of the activation of your first party data is at the heart of a good cookieless strategy. It's the foundation of understanding your customer base through their interaction and their behavior on the web. First party data is consented data, cookie-free, and it can help you through targeting and attribution and measurement on your campaign. It provides you user insights that can deliver customer-centric campaigns to increase ROAS. And why, as a publisher, as a seller, you should leverage your first-party data. It can be valuable not only to you, but also on the seller side, as you can see, since the cookieless strategies are more and more prevalent. Even on the seller side, advertisers are more interested into first-party data that they may use for their campaign. And you can also use this opportunity to explore new revenue by monetizing it. So in terms of how exactly you can use this first-party data and how you can make this data collection actionable and usable in the SSP that you're working with, it can be done through multiple scenarios. The two main one for a publisher is first case you have already a DMP or a CDP, a data management platform that you're working with and that is compatible with the SSP platform that you're working on, you can safely synchronize your data with the DMP and the CDP that is working, for instance, with Equativ already. If not, we can easily make them enter in contact with our data integration team, activation team, so that the integration can be done and you can make available those data segments into our platform and create created deals across the DSPs of your choice. The second one is if you don't have a data management platform, but you are looking for one or you can partner with one, we can, of course, introduce you to one of our DMP partners and they can provide you help on collaborating with your first-party data. Here we have a list of DMPs that we already work with. The main one that are the most common, but we have also other ones that are not listed here. You can see the complete list that we will send you with the slide. To cite a few of them: Lotame, LiveRamp, Zeotap, and Weborama, and so on. In terms of how exactly we work with those DMPs, we have audience integration capabilities that are done either via API or batch file methods. They are all integrated to our SSP by either one of those methods. But if you don't want to work with a DMP or a CDP, you can also do a direct connection to the advertiser willing to leverage your first-party data. And for this one, it will be, of course, one-on-one negotiation and discussion with them. So here, this is more a detailed view on first-party data activation in the SSP platform of Equativ. With this slide, I just wanted to explain you concretely how exactly your audience data, your first-party data will be activated. So here, for instance, you have a publisher or even an advertiser or any partner that wants to push their first-party data into a DMP or a CDP. They will do it in a secure way and anonymize it and segment it into a specific taxonomy. This DMP and our CDP will synchronize this data into what we call our data marketplace. Equativ data marketplace is a secure way for us to onboard your first-party data and make it available into our SSP curation platform. So then after that, the segments are going to be pushed to our Buyer Connect platform and they will be available. So you can either use it for your own campaigns and create your deals on it, or you can monetize it on the data marketplace and open it to other advertisers, companies, and so on. Once those segments are in the platform, you can target, you can use it as a targeting on your deal and create also an auction package through the DSP of your choice. So in terms of first-party data, there is, of course, always some challenges. Here, first-party data activation is made simple because, as I described it, it's 100% data control and secure data that is proposed here. For the privacy and consent concerns, first-party data is fully consented data that is also cookie-free and that is compliant with the user privacy regulation. And it's also a solution, a strategy that has high return on data investment with scalable and optimized activation. And here, the last benefit is specific to first-party data activation for an SSP platform. It's proposed actually max scale with direct access to the supply and also 20% less audience loss when you do a SSP level activation rather than passing through each DSP that you want to activate. And a subcategory of first-party data activation is the clean room. We have sometimes first-party data is not always scalable enough or efficient enough to do targeting or attribution measurement depending the use case. So this is where a data clean room comes into play. And it's a technology that is still recent and that enable a safe and secure way to collaborate with the first-party data of the partners. What exactly is a data clean room? It's a data clean room is a strategy that allows two parties, or even more actually, not just two parties, but multiple partners to collaborate on their first-party data that will match their audience by doing an overlap analysis without exposing the raw data itself to any users of the data clean room. So here we may have as many data owners as possible, but none of them will enter in contact and actually see the data of the other. The data clean room is a solution that can allow you to do simple audience targeting, but also do measurement and attribution on your campaigns. And also it can allow you to do customer profile enrichment. The data activation that is done through a data clean room is done through an auction package in any SSP, here in our case in Equativ as well. On our side in Equativ, we are agnostic to all data clean room, but right now we have one partner that we are collaborating with, which is Abu, and we are also collaborating with an identity resolution provider, which is Rocad for the ID graph solution. The ID graph is not required in a clean room, but can be necessary. That's something to keep in mind. So for instance, if you want to match different identifiers between a data owner, you may need actually an ID graph so that you can match on, let's say, an advertiser side that has HEMs, hashed emails, and on the publisher side that may have actually user IDs, alternative IDs, and so on. So we provide the possibility in Equativ to have access to both a clean room provider and an ID graph provider. So in terms of benefits, we wanted to illustrate and also differentiate with simple first-party data what were the benefits of using a clean room. For on the seller side, actually, just by working with us and by being integrated into our SSP, you can already unlock additional revenue by allowing us to use data clean room with our partners, and also by enabling responsible access to their users. And when curating this data and activating it on the inventory, you can make smarter and data-driven decisions based on the overlap analysis that was done. You can reach targets at scale by leveraging bigger data sets. And you can also work on attribution and measurement performances on ad campaigns, on also cookieless environment. So we saw that Chrome is soon joining the cookieless environment. And finally, this data clean room solutions can help you identify and leverage untapped revenue opportunities by understanding better the behavior of your users, and also running more powerful campaigns on them. And as an example on how to actually activate, so how exactly first-party data targeting can be activated into a clean room. There are a bunch of other use cases, of course, that's something to keep in mind, but one of them that is the most common here is first-party audience targeting. Here, as an example, you have Equativ, that is the SSP platform. It's an example that is based only on our data clean room that we have developed, but most solutions would propose more or less the same setup. And on the example, the advertiser here that is on one side that will want to target their own CRM user base. So here in this example, it's going to be, for instance, hashed emails that they will want to onboard and into the clean room and to match against the inventory of the SSP. This will be done in Abu's clean room by using also an ID graph data matching solution. And on the other side, we have the publisher IDs. So for instance, as I said, user IDs, also some alternative IDs such as ramp IDs, ID5, and so on. Equativ, as an SSP, collects all of the publishers' IDs and make them available for matching in the clean room. And once both data sets are available in the clean room, an overlap analysis will be done, and what will be delivered as an output in the SSP will be the matched audience between the two. And that was it for the data clean room use case as well. So I will Lucie take over on the alternative IDs.
Thank you, Amal. So even if Amal already pronounced alternative ID as an enabler for data clean room, let's move forward with the last ID-based solution that we have in our grouping. These are alternative IDs. So what are alternative IDs? Those are the closest similar alternative to third-party cookies, and they provide a shared identity to identify the user across the supply chain without syncing cookies. So while we call them alternative IDs, you may have actually come across them under different names, whether it's universal ID, shared ID, extended ID, or external ID, or maybe a couple of other variations with ID in the end. It still stands for the same thing, and it provides like a very similar proxy to third-party cookies. There are three major use cases covered by alternative ID. They are used to power a cookieless audience targeting, retargeting, and frequency capping. And while we mentioned that Chrome hasn't yet blocked third-party cookie, this is exactly why the current playground for alternative IDs are rather Safari and Firefox, because that's where the third-party cookies are already blocked. So, but even so, it really isn't a small share of inventory. It already represents 30% of inventory. So that's a nice playground. And we will see the current number of Equativ inventories that support at least one alternative ID. So here you can see a very hands-on representation of what the market used to look like before the use of alternative ID. So everyone within the supply chain, a DMP, SSP, or DSP, was using their own ID, and it was stored in a third-party cookie. So you imagine how much syncing needed to be involved in order to establish this chain of command throughout the ad buying process. And with the use of alternative IDs, everyone started working with the same shared ID that is stored in a first-party cookie that really made everybody's life easier. As soon as alternative IDs became a new commodity, I would say 2 years ago, that was a boom. And a lot of providers popped up. You can see here a list of the different types of ID providers. The IDs can be provided by companies that are dedicated to the business of alternative IDs, such as ID5 or Tapad, but also providers of data that are offering their own ID, like Geotap, Lotame. And then the same way, DSP, like Criteo, tech providers, measurement companies, and even marketers started to offer their own IDs. So currently, we have really a lot of options, and probably later on, we will see a bit more consolidation in the ID world. And on our side, at Equativ, we made the decision to be ID agnostic, meaning that addressability is one of our priority, and we try to be compliant with all the ID providers of the market. So whenever you, as a publisher, you would like to work with an ID provider that is not in the list, please come to your dedicated team and ask them to implement the ID that you choose. you should have good reason to choose it. So please come and ask for Equativ being compliant with this new ID. In terms of different type of ID, they don't only differ by the type of the provider, but actually the biggest difference is based on the type of methodology that those IDs and ID vendors are using. There are two major methodologies of doing that alternative IDs. The first one is inferred or probabilistic, and the other type of IDs are deterministic. The probabilistic IDs, they use passive identification signals such as IP addresses to create unique identifiers, and some of the examples of probabilistic IDs are Lotame, the Panorama ID, or ID5 ID. On the other side, you have the deterministic IDs. They use user-provided pieces of information. So those are like PII, personally identifiable information, such as emails or phone numbers or names, to create those anonymized consistent identifiers. And because those identifiers are based on a user level information, they are considered a bit more higher value and better quality because they are deterministic. They are based on a more constant and stable first-party information given by the user. And then on the other end, the probabilistic IDs are better known for their reach because they are better for scale to power more scalable use cases. So let us know if you need more information on that. And so how to start working with alternative ID on your inventory with Equativ. So as mentioned, the first step is that Equativ needs to be compliant with the ID provider. So publisher can integrate any alternative ID that was provided in the list in the slides before. Then, as a publisher, you will need to implement the ID providers. So first of all, you should check with the provider if you need to sign a contract with them. For example, for Criteo, the publisher does not need to get a contract. For others, you will need to sign a contract. Then you need to integrate the ID provider scripts so that you can push the ID provider scripts in the auction that you push to Equativ. And on the Equativ side, we support on a higher level some ID like ID5 and LiveRamp, and we support the automated transfer of extended IDs from ID5 and LiveRamp, meaning that on the publisher side, you don't need to sign a contract with them. Then we will forward on Equativ side, we will forward alternative IDs to the DSP so that we enable buyers to take advertising solution, no more based on third-party cookies, but now based on alternative ID. For sure, on the DSP side, the DSP as well has to be agnostic with the alternative ID. Then we will as well onboard data segments with alternative IDs. And we will also base the frequency swapping on alternative IDs. So currently, 36% of the global inventory support at least one alternative ID. This data is from last month in August from the Equativ inventory. And in addition, just to having like a single database on our total inventory, we regularly monitor on the traffic that is sending at least one alternative ID in the bid request in our top markets so that we can advise our publishers and advertisers how to structure their campaigns. So for example, here, we check by market what are the most common alternative ID. So you can see it's pretty much the total of 5 or 6 providers. It's just their ranking that may change from a country to another. But this could still be useful to various publishers to know which ID provider to go for and to implement on their side. So do not hesitate as well to request some updated data from your contacts at Equativ. So here are some publisher recommendations that we would like to give you on how and who to implement. So first of all, we really advise you to work with a few ID solutions to diversify your offering. So not just implementing one, but several ID providers, because it's usually free for the publishers. And there's as well no technical drawbacks using a few vendors. For example, it does not cause any latencies on the publisher website. We recommend, as we explain you, probabilistic and deterministic alternative IDs have some differences. We really recommend you to partner at least with one of each to get the reach on one side and the accuracy on the other side. As well, we really encourage you to check which ID providers are the most adopted on your market and choose the ID provider that is likely to bring the more demand. For example, you should check with which alternative IDs the DSPs that are buying the most on your inventory are compatible with. For example, if Criteo as a DSP is in your top buyers, we will really recommend you to implement the Criteo ID. So get feedback on the share of inventory and check what are the IDs that are used by the partners that you are working with. And last but not least, but a lot of information that we shared with you in that slide are taken actually from our great initiative called Identity Indicator. We started it, I think, in 2020, and it's a regular report that we update each year that will provide you with unique insight about the current state of consent and identity in the advertising landscape. Some of our partners as well, or alternative ID providers, are making some testimonials as well in that indicator. So stay tuned, because there's one that should come by the end of Q4.
All right, I will take over then on the first strategy of the ID-less solution for cookieless. The first one is actually contextual targeting, which is the most common, I would say, and the easiest of them to activate. Contextual targeting, I think most of you already heard about it. And how does it work exactly? For all of the solution proposed, all of them work nearly the same. The technology, it's a technology that will extract content from the text on the page or content from videos and app and so on. This content will be analyzed and understand as well as a human could do, but it will be done through a model. And this analysis would run and then classify the URL or the bundle, if it's an app, into a relevant targeting category based on the taxonomy that will be built by the one that is making available this contextual targeting solution. And finally, this also can apply for brand relevant ad placement, so also for viewability targeting. On this, in this case, contextual targeting can be used for a higher CTR on your inventory, because ads with low context actually has near to no retention on the user. This will increase by 2 your CTR. You will have more engagement on your content, and finally, this solution can be also applied on what we call custom contextual targeting, because you can build also your own segments based on the seasonal needs. For instance, if you run some specific campaigns, some specific sales and so on, you may need to create a new targeting and new segments that does not exist. And this solution in Equativ is already, we have one that is a proprietary solution. We have built a model, a contextual solution that is that runs on an NLP model. It's exactly as I described it. We extract some text and content from the inventory that we have on our SSP. We actually categorize and scan and analyze more than 7 million URLs per day. We don't cover and we do not support bundles, so we do not do any contextual targeting on app environment on our proprietary solution, but we also work with third-party providers that have contextual targeting available on bundles. And in our case, this NLP model help us categorize those 7 million URL per day on more than 100 segments that are categorized based on, as I said, custom needs, for instance, for seasonal needs, such as like the Rugby Cup, Rugby World Cup, and the Olympic Games and so on. But also it categorizes on nearly all the languages, 104 languages, and we have the targeting available on 75. So as I said, the contextual targeting in Equativ on the SSP is available based on our own internal solution, so a proprietary solution, but we also partner with third-party providers for for more specialized content. So for instance, Oracle's Your Data have an offering in terms of brand safety, brand placement that is quite strong. We work also with Query, and very soon we will have available, actually beginning Q4, Peer 39 segment and IAS on our data marketplace. So Equativ will offer not only an internal solution for the contextual targeting, but also some contextual providers that you may see coming soon. Just a little side note for Iris TV, it's gonna come on early 2024 on the SSP side. We have already started activating it on the DSP of Equativ, and Iris TV will enable contextual targeting on CTV content specifically. So for semantic targeting, actually the benefits are it's for me, it's I think the easiest solution to implement for a cookieless campaign. It's a simple plug and play solution. It's a stronger solution than keyword targeting because it has a precise category segmentation based on the extracted content that was done on the web page. So we run this scan regularly, so that if the web page changes, we also change the category that it was based on. It's an easy to use solution. It can be easily applied across all the web inventory, and it can easily be activated on your campaign. And finally, you can easily test it to see how it can increase your ad revenue, particularly, as I said, because low context ads usually have close to 2 times less impressions and 2 times less CTR than high context ad placement. So that was it on the contextual targeting. In terms of seller-defined audience, I wanted to say before diving into the subject, I will present seller-defined audience, but we have also seller-defined context that is available. It works exactly the same way as the contextual targeting, except that it's passed through what we call seller-defined context fields into the bid request, and they're also built into cohorts. So what is SDA? Shorter for seller-defined agents, and it will be easier for me to refer it for the rest of the presentation as SDA. SDA is a new addressability solution that is another alternative to third-party cookies. It was brought to you and also to us by IAB Tech Lab. And it helps publishers scale first-party data usage without compromising data security and user privacy. It relies on IAB industry standard that I refer to below here. The first one is the audience taxonomy. One of the IAB provide a standardized taxonomy based on 3 pillars: demographic, purchase intent, and interest segments. This allow scalability of those SDA segments since you can use a common taxonomy across cross publishers. It's not mandatory to use this taxonomy, but it's highly advised. The second pillar is that it's of the IAB industry standard is the data transparency standard. This allow actually to pass documentation and information on the transparency and quality compliance of your SDA data into the bid request. And it actually allows buyers of SDA to have insights on the quality of the data. The last one is Transparency Center. It's a centralized resource for all buyers and to review a cohort before purchase to see if it's safe for transaction, and also to gather data insights for the buyer side. So publisher on first-party data activation historically was managed on the server side, but SDA allows publisher first-party data to be passed on the client side in the bid request and in the form of segment and cohort. So in terms of benefits, the main one is that it can except for the classic one, which is a new revenue stream that can help you monetize SDA on your inventory as a publisher. The main one, I think, is that it can be scaled to 100% of your users. It can be leveraged across publisher, and because it's done in the form of segments and cohorts, you can have a better reach across all channel, context, and browsers. It's, of course, privacy safe. The only thing that is available and actually targeted here is actually a cohort ID. So no identified user is passed through the bid request to the bid stream. No raw data is shared. And finally, it's hands-on activation. The SDA can be made available to multiple buyers. So you don't need to enter into one-on-one negotiation with advertisers on the seller side to have to monetize and to activate your first-party data. Anyone can do SDA as long as you have the technology to match the data client side. And in terms of how does the SDA work, you will see some common, some common points with how first-party data is also activated. In the same way, the publisher can create audience segments based on your first-party data by using a DMP or SDA provider or via direct integration. This data will be passed into cohort IDs, as I said. So for instance, as one segment of seller-defined audience will equal a cohort ID. And this cohort ID will be passed to the SSP, here in this case, Equativ, in the ad request following IAB standard taxonomy or your own taxonomy. The SSP, still us in this case, Equativ, will activate the SDA in a deal ID or an auction package, or send the SDA in the bid request directly. There is one thing to keep in mind: if it's done through an open auction, the DSP has to support SDA. So for instance, Trade Desk does support SDA. The contrario, if the SDA activation is done through a deal ID, the DSP doesn't need necessarily to support it. It can be easily activated by it. The DSP after that, either in the deal ID or the open auction, will examine the segment ID and will decide to bid on the ad call or not. So SDA is not limited to one single provider or one unique taxonomy. As I said, it's not only the IAB taxonomy that you have to follow. You can also apply your own taxonomy or work with a DMP that is a SDA enabler and that will have a cross-publisher taxonomy that they have already available. You have multiple options to adopt SDA into your inventory. So either via direct integration onto the SSP or by working with a data provider. In our side, in Equativ, we work already with multiple partners, Permutive that is a SDA enabler, Data that is a DMP, and data provider that it has been working with us on SDA segments, but also on normal data, first-party data audience. ID World that is also on the buy side DMP that works with agencies and buyers to create custom segments, SDA segments. But as we said during the whole presentation, Equativ, we have as an ambition to be agnostic to all solutions, to all partners. So if you're already working with a data provider that supports SDA, don't hesitate to reach out to us, and we can enter in contact with them to see how we can integrate them into our SSP. And I'm not going to go over the whole technical part of what signals are passed through the bid request and so on, but just to review quickly what are the integration types that we support. SDA is very common into the client-side integration in PreBGS. All of our SDA enablers that I cited before, ID World, Permutive, Data are actually integrated into the PreBGS. But we are also covering SDA on the server side in the SSB, Ad API, and also on the full stack side for the Smart.js. And just to differentiate a bit, first-party data, simple first-party data activation and seller-defined audience. There is some common points, but there is some differentiation that can explain why you would go rather for SDA than first-party data. The first one is that it's a standardized universal taxonomy, either via by applying the IAB taxonomy, but you can also apply a universal taxonomy cross-publisher with the SDA enabler that you will work with. It will, by doing that, allow better scale with cross-publisher data. It's easy to operate and available immediately. And of course, it offers efficient access and activation on your data since SDA is available to multiple buyers for direct activation into open auction or deals. And that was it for SDA. I will let Lucie cover the performance targeting.
And this is our last one, we promise. This is our last one addressability solution that we will cover today. So performance targeting, I won't spend too much time on that. And this can be represented by really different type of targeting, such as viewability targeting, or video completion targeting, or even attention targeting that you might have heard of. It's a new performance KPI that is really trendy. We want to highlight these three performance targeting solutions because on the buy side, we see more and more agencies requesting and making campaign over performance targeting. And so on the publisher side, we really encourage you to strengthen your viewability, to be careful about viewability, attention, and video completion rate of your ads, and to improve your website to reach high KPI on viewability, attention, and so on. The way that these solutions work most of the time, predominantly, it's also based on private segments targeting, and it's based on historic measurement. So that's why it's so important on your side, on the publisher side, to take care of these performance KPI. So this is it. So here is just a little recap of all the solutions that we talked and all the features that should be available or not per alternative and addressability solution. So I will let you check after the webinar, but you will see that consent is not required in some of the solution, like alternative ID. Are required, on the type of solution, but for example, for contextual targeting, the consent is not required. So I will let you check that chart right after. So at Equativ, we are really here to help you. So for sure, if you need further training, let us know and let's reach out to your team or to us directly if you need more. We also provide a lot of resources on our blog. This webinar will be shared as well on our blog, so you can really check it. We are also here to build with you a strong cookieless strategy. So as Amal already mentioned, if you have some SDA providers that we are not supporting or any ID, alternative ID providers that we are not supporting, please reach out to us. And finally, let's activate your strategy and let's do it now. As we told you, let's test and learn before that we really have the deprecation of the cookies. And as a takeaways, as mentioned, it's tomorrow. It has already changed the way of doing business on the advertisers and on the publishers side. It is, however, a shift toward more ethical, responsible practices, and we should all embrace it. It's key to get a good adoption of all these solutions. And the existing and constantly evolving addressability solution can bridge the gap. So, and Equativ is here to support you. So now we have 3 minutes to answer some questions. Let me check in the chat. So I got one question, if it is possible to get the top alternative ID by market split for the whole Europe. So we got one slide on that one. I don't know if it was for specific geos. We have a long question, so I think that we will read it afterwards and we will answer you for sure. And we also have a question, Amal, for you, what we are doing about topics.
Yeah, so some of you already heard maybe that Google launched its own privacy sandbox solution that is provided through a topics API. How does it work exactly? It's on the privacy sandbox, they will build some sort of interest group. It's very similar to how it works on SD as well. For now, it's still in testing. I know that they tested with multiple partners, for instance, Criteo, to see how it's integrated into their campaigns and so on. But on our side, in Equativ, for the SSP, we decided to work on the first integration this quarter, actually on Q4. And by early 2024, we will have traffic passing through and topics available on campaigns.
Thank you, Amal.
And I think we have we have time for one small
Yeah.
question. We are talking about cookieless, but do you have a solution for users who have not opted in? So consentless data. The main one here that is already used, it's I would say contextual targeting, but most of the solution that we presented, as you could see, they required consented data. So the only one that do not that can be applied on users that did not opt in would be contextual. Yeah.
And okay, so I'll check to include Nordics, Poland, Latvia, and Serbia. I'm not sure. I think I can get Poland and Nordics. Not sure about Latvia and Serbia. I'll check if I could include it into the report at the end for the webinar, for after the webinar. I think we are good and we are on time. So, and just to let you know, I asked, so for the question, we have the email of the people who asks the long question, so that for sure we will answer you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a nice end of the day, and do not hesitate if you have any question to reach out to your Equativ contact. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.